Hello once again, everyone. So today I have a fun little thing for you. It's going to be just a simple little drill that you can do at home that will take you through a majority of lateral footwork when it comes to linear fencing. Now in this case I'm going to be doing it with a small sword. You could apply this to any thrust or range weapon such as other small swords, of course, spadroons, rapiers, etc. Right? Anything wherein you are focusing on your lunge, pretty much. You could also probably transfer this into doing stuff with a cut, but I'm focusing on the thrust as really the footwork and the extension is the most important part of this in place of any actual action with the blade. So, the goal of this is that you should be able to do so in a relatively limited area as we are taking one or other foot off of this central point that I'm standing on right now. Now, what you can do is, of course, you can lay out a marker, or if you're training in a limited space, this also works just fine. But the idea here is the drill is going to have an offensive and a defensive component. So first, I will do my offensive component, wherein I will advance and I will retreat. This takes me back to the place where I started. I will advance, lunge, making sure I'm nice and strong, recover, then I will retreat, rear lunge, which I've talked about before in nitty-gritty, recover. This should take me, again, pretty much back to where I started. So that's our first bit. I'll do that now a little more fluidly. Advance, retreat, advance, lunge, recover, retreat, rear lunge, recover. Now, from here, I'm going to start doing some traversal. I will use the phrase traversal for small sword's sake, but this could also just be offline steps, etc. So I'm going to go back first, so I'm going to step with my right foot, 1, 2. This should gain a little bit of angle from where I started, so I'm about a 30 degree on my central line. Extend, lunge, recover. Back to center line with a forward traverse. Extend, lunge, recover. Now I'm going to go forward traverse again. 1, 2, same thing other side. Lunge. 1, 2, lunge. Now the purpose of this part, the advances and the retreats, that's linear stuff. You should know how to do that. When it comes to this, it's about using that lunge to check and recenter yourself. So too often when we start doing extended linear or lateral movements, the foot is not necessarily loading up behind the body as much as it should. Thus, you take a quick step out to the side, but your lunge may not be as good on both sides. So we need that to be a nice, consistent thing. So, some things I want you to focus on. Whatever your chosen spot, be this on a line or what have you, make sure your step is relatively small, and I am turning my body at the same time. So for reference, I will set myself up so that I am facing a line opposite the camera, i.e. right now I am fencing someone in front of me. When I do this traverse, you see how my body is turning inward against this new line that I'd be attacking. Same thing on the other side. Again, I'm now facing that guy, but I want to face you, so I will step, so I'm lining up. And this isn't just with my feet, but it's with my body as well. This lunge should still be powered off of the back leg because that's what we're focusing on moving, right? So, we'll go over that bit a little more fluently. So we've just done advance, retreat, etc. We're going to go back, lunge, four, lunge, four, lunge, back, lunge. You should end up pretty much where you started. Now, at this point, we're going to add now some more specific stuff. We're going to institute our passing steps, as well as start talking about different kinds of offense. So for this, I will face the camera. The idea here is that we're either going to move our front foot or our back foot off of the line. So the very first action I can do is I'm going to take wide steps with both feet. So, for my wide step with my left foot, I will perform a wide passing step. I think I've talked about this before in a couple different situations wherein I could strike in either secunda or it doesn't really matter, right? Point is, wide step taking me off the line. I then recover back. All right, next one. This is one that I haven't talked a lot about on the channel, but is much more useful in small sword, though you could absolutely still apply it in rapier, is when you're going to strike in a high court or high quarta. The idea here is that I am going to move my right foot off the line to give myself a little bit more reinforcement against that center line. So essentially, I'm almost like leaning into it, but rather than bringing my arm across my body, I keep my arm in the center line and step away from it. Now you can add a little bit extra in pressure to give yourself a bit more strength with your fort, but is not necessarily required or going, especially in this kind of practice, it's not as big of a thing. You'll feel it when you do so. But essentially it's left foot goes wide off the line, strike. Right foot goes wide off the line, strike. And again, I'm still where I started. Now we'll go narrow. So for our right foot, well, you could do this left, then right, etc. I like to go left, right, then right, left. I don't know why, I just like to do that. So I'm going to do the Italiana, wherein I will take my right foot and move with a lunge that goes crossways to void over my back as I strike in. Then I will do a narrow passing step. This would be akin to any of my grappling actions, and I will turn over in this second because that's my habit. So, let's go over all those again. You've just done all your lateral attacks. Now here come our linear but lateral attacks. Well, lateral attacks without changing position, basically, right? So, wide, recover, wide, recover, narrow, recover, narrow, recover. And you just tack that on at the end. Now, the final bit is our purely defensive style of lateral footwork, and this is where we're going to move just kind of one foot at a time. So for this, we're using a couple of things I haven't really discussed at length, rather, but these are to be thought of as you need more than what you can get. So what that means is, if an attack is coming in, I should be able to smartly deal with it by just directing my point into whatever opening I need to do. That shuts it down. That is not necessarily always the case. Either because your opponent is using lateral steps on you, so the attack can still come in, I need more. It is no longer beneficial for me to move my entire arm. It is better, this takes me out of presence, it is better for me to move my body in relation to that attack. You know, fight fire with fire, lateral, right? In which case you can do a couple different things. So, as for the parries themselves, I'll kind of go into detail as I go. So first is going to be relatively simple. We're going to move our front foot and our back foot in regards to their respective areas. So, if I need to get a little bit more pressure on my outside, I step with my left foot. I can do the exact same thing by stepping back the other way with my left foot. However, we'll come back to that kind of as we go. So, outside. Then as the attack comes in, and I mean to get a little bit more pressure with my quarta, you can do a couple different things. You could actually go this way, but I'm going to add my left foot coming back behind me to give me a little bit more. So this is essentially a compass step. Now, you can do this with more or less emphasis. So I actually face this way. For just the parry, all I need to do is pretty much just turn myself a bit. Sometimes you could get a little more, right? Usually about 30 degrees is enough. Alternatively, if I was needing to move while I do this, I could step and then learn to power off of it. That is its own skill set, especially important in things like quarterstaff, halberd, etc. But for now, we'll just go ahead and do the parry. So again, coming over my shoulder, very wide, coming through my chest, very wide. Nice and simple. Now when it comes to moving my front foot, the exact same thing is going to be applied. Here comes that attack going over my arm. I can step wide with it, so kind of coming back as I do so. You could also use this to go slightly forward if needed. Here comes that attack coming in, I will step a bit more into it. So these are just working under that sort of simple pretense, and this will give you some nice parries. Now, at the moment, I'm not moving my sword a whole lot. I will say, especially when I do this one with small sword and things like that, I feel much better about going to the hanging guard. This could also be a situation wherein you were blocking a cut. Same thing as well when I step out or back, starting to get into kind of some shift work. But either way, this just sort of moves your feet around, gets you used to defensive things. So we'll go over that whole pattern. So, wide parry, now with the front feet, wide, in. So, now we have a nice bit of movement, and then to center yourself up and finish, lunge, and you should be in the same spot you were. So let's go through the whole thing. I will do it first facing this way, then I will face the camera. So, we are on guard, advance, retreat, advance, lunge, recover, retreat, rear lunge, recover, forward traverse, lunge, that's the back first, forward traverse, lunge, forward traverse, lunge, back traverse, lunge. Now we're all centering our lateral. Time for lateral attacks. So, wide passing step, high port, Italiana, narrow passing step. Now we get into defenses, wide, wide, narrow, narrow. Now I'll do the same thing, hopefully this time without mucking, oh, and of course lunge. But anyway, hopefully I'll do this without mucking up both that last lunge and also the forward and back traverse. Apologies. In case you were not familiar, forward traverse to your open side, back traverse to your closed side. Let's go again. Advance, retreat. Advance, lunge, recover, retreat, rear lunge, recover, back traverse, lunge, recover, forward traverse, lunge, recover, forward traverse, lunge, recover, back traverse, lunge, recover. Lateral attacks, wide passing step, high port, Italiana, narrow passing step. Now defenses, wide, wide, narrow, narrow, and then lunge, recover. So, just a little simple thing that you can do. You don't even necessarily need a sword. You can just do this with your arm. But really the important thing is seeing about that consistency as you go through and seeing how comfortable that should be. I mean, obviously this has elevated my breath level, and I'm working a little bit as I do this, but this is not necessarily super intensive, and you probably ought to want to be doing it about that speed. If you want to use this audio as a way to go through it, I highly recommend you do so. Just use that second bit rather than the first bit because I'm up. But anyway, point being, you can also alter the order of this at any point. So for example, during my lateral attacks, I could forward traverse, lunge, back traverse, lunge, back traverse, lunge, etc., right? That's not a problem. Or you could alter the order of how those attacks came in. So rather than wide passing step, it's high court, passing step, Italiana, right? You could do all sorts of things with that. You can flip-flop the order, whatever really floats your boat. You can also add in more advances and retreats if you wish. I find that you can practice the advance and the retreat pretty easily on your own with basic attacks, especially because you'll be doing that a lot with your partners, because that's really the main way you're going to be moving. But these can sometimes be a little hard to practice by yourself because you don't have that consistent. So, pick your spot on the floor. You may even put a little range marker or something that you need to be aware of. If you have a line like I do here on the floor, you could also use this as general reference for what you're fighting and things along those lines. You can do this with a target. There are a bunch of different things you can do. But either way, hopefully that gives you something to practice regardless of what weapon it is that you do. You could also maybe play with this with passing steps, etc., but it really is designed for the lunge. So, and after you're very comfortable with it on one side, try it on the other. See if you can't get that same consistency. You could definitely apply this to something like bayonet or spear. Either way, though, thank you very, very much for watching. We'll go over some other techniques another time.